Hi guys, Koulouria to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making the classic Greek Koulouria Thessaloniki. You can find these in every bakery all around Greece. They're covered in sesame seeds. They're basically bread rings that look just like bagels, except they're so much better. I'm going to teach you how to make them at home, and they're going to taste as if you bought them from a fancy bakery. So delicious, so easy. You can serve these on a breakfast platter. You can serve them with any meal. You can serve them as a snack. They keep fresh in the refrigerator for a few days, and you could rewarm them and they'll be just as crisp and fresh tasting. Let's get started. So I'm going to start off in my tabletop mixer. It makes life so much easier. You can definitely make this by hand if you have to. In a big bowl, you can knead everything all together. But if you do have a mixer, take it out and get the hook attachment ready too, because that's going to go on. First, we're going to proof the yeast. So I'm going to add 1.5 cups of lukewarm water to the bowl, about 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar, another 2 teaspoons of all-purpose flour. This is all going to help activate that yeast. And then I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Now this is usually always good. I've hardly ever come across a bad batch of yeast, but it does happen. And if that happens, all of your hard work will go down the drain, because the yeast is what gives the bread the rise, and it makes it nice and soft and does basically creates the bread. So what you want to do is let this mixture sit for about 8 minutes. Once you see a cloud form on the top, that's how you know the yeast is active. I made a batch this morning, so I know it's active, so I'm not going to do this test right now. If you make it the same day, if you make a double batch and it does its thing the first time, it's definitely going to do its thing the second time. So we're just going to skip that step. To the wet mixture, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of olive oil. And then in this bowl, I have 4 cups of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to whisk it together. And I'm going to add all the flour mixture to the mixing bowl. Then I'm going to attach the dough hook to it, turn it on low speed, and let it knead for 12 to 14 minutes. And then we'll move on to the next step. So go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil to a big bowl that has plenty of room for the dough to rise. It's going to double in volume. And toss it around so that way it's coated. Cover it with a kitchen towel or with some plastic wrap and set it aside in the warmest part of your house so it can double in volume. So I like to stick this in my dryer, the dryer that dries laundry, that is. What I do is I put a couple of towels in the dryer and I let it run for about 10 minutes, the same time that it takes to knead the dough. Basically, that's how long you need the dryer to run. Make sure those towels are already dried so that way they can retain the heat. Then make sure that you turn the dryer off. Put the bowl in the dryer, close the door, leave the dryer off, and in about an hour, your dough should have risen. Sometimes it even takes 45 minutes. It's a nice trick that saves time, and if you have a dryer, then go ahead and use it for this method. I have another bowl ready to go. So Layla's going to help me make the Koulouria today. Yesterday we did it, and she did such a good job. She rolled all of them. You want to say hi, Layla?
Hi.
What do you want to do to the dough?
Punch it down.
So she's going to punch down the dough. She's going to punch all the air out of it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Can I do it one more time?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So go ahead and put a little bit of olive oil on the counter. This is going to help them roll out easily. And I'm going to transfer the dough to the counter, and I'm going to cut it into 10 equal portions. So the best way to do this is to cut it in half first, and then cut each portion into 5 pieces.
5 pieces make 10.
So that's 10, right?
Yeah.
So now, me and Layla are going to take one portion of dough at a time, and we're going to roll it into a long rope. It should be about 8 to 10 inches long. Right, Layla? Remember how we did it yesterday?
Yeah.
And then we can add, so if there's not too much oil, if there's a lot of oil, you're not going to be able to do this. So be careful when you add the oil. Yeah, there's too much oil, right?
Yeah.
So let's get another one out. Let's let this one rest. So I wiped the extra oil off of the counter because it was making it very hard to roll out. If your dough is too sticky, then you're going to need extra oil. Otherwise, skip the oil. So we're going to roll it out, Layla, into a long rope, just like that. That's perfect. And then if you want to add a little bit of texture to it, just do something like that with your fingers. And then what do? We connect them, right?
Yeah.
To make a ring. Perfect. So now we're going to open it up, and I'm going to place it on a baking tray that I have lined with parchment paper.
This one has a lot.
Don't put more than 5 on each baking tray. And we're going to continue rolling out the ropes. Now, again, if you didn't divide the dough evenly the way I did, some are going to be a little bit bigger than others. Then obviously they're just going to be a little bit bigger, and some are going to be a little bit smaller. But try to do it as even as possible, so that way the baking time is the same and they all bake evenly. But get your kids involved. This is fun. Do you like making this bread, Layla?
Yeah. Oh, this one's really big.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're going to continue making these, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Yeah. This is such a good job. High five. So all of the koulouria are formed. What we're going to do now is we're going to brush the tops with water, and Layla's going to do that for me. You have to brush a little more water. The water is going to help the sesame seeds stick on top. Do this corner too. And while she's brushing, I'm going to take each one that she brushed. You can go on and brush the rest. And I'm going to dip it in these sesame seeds over here. You can do a combination of black and white sesame seeds, or all white, or all black. And if you're not a fan of that many sesame seeds, instead of dipping it in like this, like I'm doing, you can just sprinkle them on top or leave them out if you want to leave it plain. So on the other tray, I have this everything bagel seasoning that I'm just going to sprinkle on top. It's a combination of different sesame seeds. There's some garlic in here, some salt, and it just has a lot of flavor. It's not traditional, but it does taste really good. So if you want to put, just to give it a try on some of them, it's a good idea. Let me know what you think. So now we're going to set these aside for 20 minutes. I'm not going to even bother putting these in the dryer because both trays are not going to fit. So my oven is preheating to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and I also put a cast iron skillet on the bottom rack. That is important. Now, if you want to make really good bread at home, a cast iron skillet is gonna be the perfect vessel to get nice and hot, so that when we pour some water in it and create steam, that is what gives the exterior crunchy bakery style bread texture that you're looking for. If you don't have a cast iron pan and you can't do this, you're really not going to get that crunchy exterior. It's really hard to recreate that at home without steam. You have to find a way to get steam in the oven, and that is the best way to do it. So the cast iron pan is heating in there at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just going to leave these on top of the oven. The heat from the oven is going to help them rise a little bit. You just want them to get slightly puffy, so 20 minutes is good enough. Then I'm going to put one tray in at a time on the center rack. And once I put the tray in, then I'm going to take a tall glass that's filled with ice water. I'm going to carefully pour it into the cast iron skillet. You want to be very careful when you're doing this, so that way you don't get burned. You don't get burned from the steam or from the water that's going to splatter from the pan. Just be very careful with that. slide both racks back into the oven and let the koulouria bake for about 20 minutes until they're nice and golden all around. But keep in mind, I did start the oven off at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the bread goes in, I'm going to reduce it to 450 degrees, and in 20 minutes, they're going to be done. So our bread rings are ready. They took about 23 or 24 minutes in the oven to cook. Every oven bakes differently, so keep an eye on them, and when they're golden, take them out. And then you want to let them rest for about 5 or 10 minutes before you serve them, so that way the steam inside can settle. So they're supposed to be really nice and crisp on the outside. Let you hear how they should be. Let me tap on them as well. Do you hear that? That is the sound that you want to hear. Let's give it a taste, Layla. You want to try it? Here, hold it. You like it? These are so good. They have that really nice bakery texture on the outside. They're super soft on the inside and airy too. If you look, there are air pockets, and that is what you're looking for. That comes from allowing the dough to rise well and kneading it really well at the same time. Serve these with feta cheese, olive oil. If you want to do cream cheese and jelly breakfast, anything you would put in a bagel. Serve them with your favorite chicken stew. This is such a versatile recipe and delicious to have on hand. You can bake these just the way I did if you're making a second batch, and you can freeze them. So once they cool completely, put them in an airtight container or freezer safe bags, and they'll stay fresh in the freezer for about a month. Then thaw them out on the countertop and toast them in the oven at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit until they're nice and toasted, and then serve them with whatever you want. I hope you guys head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com, to print out this recipe. Let me know what you guys think and what you're going to be serving them with in the comment section down below. And we'll be back here with another recipe soon, right?
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Yes, yes.